About time for a haircut, back from Japan. If you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share. Support the channel if you want to appreciate things. I think I lost maybe almost like 5 pounds from Japan from being sick all the time and the light amount of working out I did, but what are you gonna do? So, some videos that I wanted to make more while in Japan because I like the psychological aspect. So today, and I need to do a video after this talking about just the Japan trip in general, some other things. But today, I want to talk about the grass is greener on the other side, and I want to talk about racism. Maybe not straight up racism in Japan, but stereotyping, maybe stereotyping in the world in general, right? And I say that because, to step back a little bit, when I was in Turkey, I talked about that I knew about the more, say, religious side versus the more progressive side of Turkey, right? Which is kind of interesting because if you make it more deep, you think about like, oh, what is it? Is it the Bosphorus Strait River? Whatever the fuck the big river thing is, sea, whatever it is, and you take the boat when you're in Turkey. So you could be like, oh man, just like there's the east side and the west side of Turkey, there's also the political side, the more sort of, religious side, more progressive side, whatever. You can make it deep like that, like just like the whole continent or continent country, whatever. You're like, Clayton, I'm not listening to anything you say. You just proved you're a stupid American. I'm sorry. But anyway, you get what I'm saying, but hopefully. But, something I didn't know about Turkey was that there was a pretty outward, stereotype, almost borderline racism, you could say, towards Arab people. And even on the street, people would openly tell you like, oh, I can't stand the Arab population. They're taking over everything, all that kind of stuff, right? And even when I was in Turkey, you'd walk into different places and they have like, x-ray machines, etc. And I ended up asking the police, like, why are there so many x-ray machines? Or, just like walking into any store, right? And they were like, well, it's because the Arab population, they just straight up said they're causing a lot of problems and they're bringing in weapons, guns and knives and everything. And I'm like, guns? And I was like, what do you mean? How does someone from a different country bring in a knife or a gun to like another country? And they're like, they just have more money than us. They can do whatever they want. You know what I mean? But generally, it was definitely not happy, with the Arab population. And on this channel, I've talked about before, just when we're talking about different countries and meeting different people, always trying to get out of your own echo chamber, etc. I've always said that, Americans, you definitely see that Americans, they are very naive towards other countries. They don't understand how free they are, going to some of these other countries where, it's basically only this sort of demographic of people. Whereas if you're in America, it's like it's a melting pot, every different kind of ethnicity, race, whatever. Like Americans don't realize how fucking free they are going to these other countries. Like Americans are very, they want a gold star for doing nothing. You know what I mean? That was, it's ridiculous, right? And I want to go to a European country because I want more stuff for free. And it's like some of these, you go to some of these European countries, they're going to want to fucking kill you. They don't want you fucking here, But, long tangent, going into this, because I would say this is the first time that I was ever in Japan and I was talking to people. And, some of the ideas of, as my fucking, come on my screen, as the idea of like, say, stereotyping and racism started coming up because people were like, kind of like talking about like, we're letting in a little bit too many refugees into Japan right now, people were saying. And, and that might sound racist, like there's like a little too many black people right now in Japan, a little bit too many like Arabic people in Japan. And like some people were actually kind of like talking about that. And they're like, and a lot of these times, like, and it could be, because of, say, there's that Johnny Somali situation that happened, he's a black dude, right? And there is some stuff on Twitter about some of like the Arab population, they're getting into fights and everything like that. And some people were actually talking about like, oh, we're letting in a little bit too many foreigners now. Specifically, like say the black population or say the Arab population, and you would hear about it, right? And then especially, it wouldn't, this doesn't even necessarily have to be Japanese, whatever. But, talking to other foreigners, not necessarily from America, but, foreigners from European countries, one story was I met this Ukraine guy, you know what I mean? And that was I think I wrote about it. I think I talked about it on Instagram. It's very strange because he ended up being from Interpals, and we ended up talking about that. And he's like, "You're the Dante guy. You look like Dante. You're Interpal's Dante guy." I'm like, "Yeah, that's me." And like, what? So we started talking about that. I guess it just just shows how my pictures have been stolen so much, and people have called me Dante before in some of those pictures. Like, yeah, you look like Dante there. You're like, Interpals? And it's like, yeah, that's me. It's like, what the? Oh, whatever, right? So, very small world, but, that guy had a very interesting story, too. I mean, his English seemed good, but I don't know if he was saying the wrong thing, but he was saying that he had spent $45,000 trying to get out of Ukraine when all this, well, I guess it's still going on, the Russia situation, the war. And eventually, he ended up just having to cross the border, and he got a refugee, visa to come to Japan. But even he was talking about, he's like, oh man, he's like, America's the one country I would never want to go to. And he's like, Americans, we were talking about so self-centered, so, entitled, they don't realize what other countries are. They're crazy. Like, I would never, he was like, America's the one country I never want to visit. Like, Americans suck. You know what I mean? And I was like, well, I'm American. He's like, oh, really? And he's like, well, anyway, he messaged me. He's like, wow, I'm glad we had such a good conversation, I think it's just because, again, I'm always trying to live outside of my own echo chamber. But, talking to other Europeans, and they were even like, man, like, I want to come to Japan because I feel more safe here because, the refugee situations in some of these countries, a lot of the Arabs are starting crime where I live. You know what I mean? So I want to, move to Japan because I'm starting not to feel safe in, said European country, wherever they were from. And I'm just talking about this because, it's something that I had never heard about in any of my times in being to Japan. So that was interesting, hearing these kind of comments. And some of them, one of the guys, I think he watches my YouTube, he says now, and he's pretty much outright said, like, I hate black people. he said that, I hate black. He's like, they're just he's like, I don't feel safe around them. You know what I mean? Because of all this shit going on. So, so you know what? You hear that kind of stuff, and again, it's not something I've ever heard, being in Japan before, but you hear about, talking to other foreigners, Japanese people, whatever, and it really kind of drives home that idea that, Americans don't realize how good they have it, so to speak, how free you are in America, right? Because a lot of more, sort of outright stereotyping, borderline, let's say racism almost, I don't know if you would exactly say outright racism, but definitely dislike, you know what I mean, for say an Arabic population or a black population. You hear about it, it's weird, as much as I'm in Japan, living in America legitimately, I've heard more racist, let's see, or at least borderline racist, at least stereotyping things in these other countries than I ever do in America. Like America, it's like, where's this prejudice you're getting? Like, I don't even, where? You know what I mean? Like, what America are you living in? You know what I mean? These other countries, they don't fucking want you. The other people, they fucking hate Americans. You know what I mean? People are surprised, oh, you're actually American? Like, some people are like, oh, you're not American. No, you can't be American, right? And some people are like, oh, you just don't look American. There's definitely a stereotype that Americans are shitty, let's say. One of the only countries, and it's funny you're talking about, one of the only countries that maybe don't have the American stereotype per se is, say, just Japanese themselves, A lot of them do sort of think Americans, or at least a stereotypical American, or maybe the blonde hair, blue eyes, let's say oh, that's a cool kind of thing, right? You know what I mean? I told the stories on Instagram, talking to Japanese people. Some Japanese were like, dude, you're cool, you're so cool. It's but you're a different kind of cool. Not only, there's that, you get that extra credit, right? Some of them, you talk to them, they're legitimate, you're cool because you're American, but then you're actually cool, so you're an extra kind of cool. Right? I'm like, okay, I guess, right? And I said that one time, I was talking to a group of people, at one point, you know, they're like, how old are you? And I was like, oh, I'm much older than you think, probably. And they're like, wait, oh, so what do you mean? You know, this, oh, blah, blah, I'm older than that. I'm like, oh my God, they're like, that makes you even cooler. Like, you're old and you still look cool. And I'm like, okay, I'm old and I still look cool. They're like, whoa, American cool? You're cool, and you're old? You're like, you're so cool. And I'm like, okay. You know what I mean? Like, generally, I've said before, like, a lot of times, I don't know what it was about this trip. You know, I was sick most of the trip. So I basically, I didn't do shit. But a lot of times when I'm in Japan, you know, I hear people like, oh my God, yeah. Or, oh, you come in, you know, kakui, you know. But a lot of times, like, they're saying, like, oh, cho kakui, oh, cho, ikamen, cho, yabai. I don't know. Maybe it's just, you know, the people I was meeting, they were saying that. I was, like, super cool this trip for some reason, but whatever. But anyway, it makes me think about the grass is greener on the other side kind of thing, because, again, Americans don't realize that, you know, how well they have it. You know, you're not that looked down upon in America. You know, a lot of European countries, you know, some of these people I'm talking to, you know, they outwardly don't like black people. They outwardly don't like Arabic people. You know what I mean? And they're pretty open about it. It's not like a kind of thing. You know what I mean? Like, say when I talk in America, just say, you know, when we talk about the overly radical LGBTQ, a lot of times when you talk to other Americans about it, like they're on like, they're like, oh, is anyone watching? It's like, oh God, yeah. It's like, I don't really like it. You know what I mean? It's like, dude, like, God, I think I told that one story was, I don't know if I told it on YouTube or whatever, but, you know, there's that one girl, sorry, a couple girls, they had some person that was working with them, and they said every time they would get in trouble, they just switched their gender. They switched their gender. You know, like, oh, they're a guy and they become a girl. But like, oh, it's my period. Like, you're a guy. You don't get periods. What are you talking about? But they couldn't say anything because they were afraid they would get fired. But, you know, you hear conversations like that in America if you actually talk to lots of people. You know what I mean? But, you know, they're like afraid to say it. But, you know, when I travel and you talk to people, they're kind of openly, they're like open, like, oh God, fuck the LGBTQ. Oh fuck, I don't feel safe around black people. Or, oh fuck, you know, I don't feel safe around Arabic people. And what I'm getting at is when you hear that kind of stuff, people are kind of more open about it. You know, it's kind of like, you know, it's like, geez, again, I've talked about before, Americans don't realize how well they have it, you know? And, you know, for sure, and I'll just say this in case she fucking watches my YouTube, you know what I mean? Like, it is sad because, you know, at least if we're talking about, say, the Arabic population, you know, and this isn't to say, you know, I do have, you know, some Arab friends that watch. If Palm Tree is watching, Palm Tree, you know I don't hate you, okay? You know what I mean? Like, you know, I have friends, you know, they do a lot of nice things for me and they say a lot of nice things and I appreciate their friendship. But it is sad because it is true, because you do see that, you know, God, you know, there's this one person that was messaging me, you know, and they message me every now and then for years now. They'll come back and, you know, just it's this Arab girl that randomly messaged me, and she's just so fucking manipulative and just seemingly like evil at heart. You know, like no matter how many times I try to talk to this person, they'll come back after so long, and I try to give this person like another chance, and you know they are attractive. They're actually, I would say she's actually quite beautiful, actually. You know, whenever I see her, but you know, just her personality is just so, you know, kind of evil, to be honest with you, and always going back to, oh well, you know, but I'm Muslim, so it's okay. But talking to the person, just such manipulativeness when you talk to them, and just seemingly evilness, you know, to be honest with you. And it's sad because, you know, I talked about before, you know, a lot of times the most, I guess it's, you know, again, it's the cliche thing when I was growing up, the most religious person is just constantly the most evil, the most judgmental. And you do talk to a lot of people from a lot of more Muslim countries, and they are very, it is sad, like, you know, there's good, you know, there's good stuff that comes out of being that religious, and then there's also the people that are demographic that is just so judgmental and so, seemingly evil, legitimately evil. You talk to them and it's like, there's just something wrong with you, you know? And just like, you know, again, when I compare it to America, you know, in America growing up, the most religious person is often the most judgmental and evil. And America is now the overly radical LGBTQ person is often the most evil, you know. Just not a good person. It's like, what are you doing? What are you doing that's actually good? And, you know, again, I say it because it is sad, and I say it as someone who's constantly, I'm trying to talk to different people from all over. I want to travel all over. I want to meet people because I'm always, you know, I make these videos. I want to find, you know, that echo chamber in my head, so to speak, that the world is a good place. You know, that I've made the right choices in life, trying to live life the way that I have, right? You know, I want to be like, yeah, the world is a good place. The world is a good place. There are good people. But, you know, to be honest, you know, you meet a lot of people from around the world and it's like, man, the world is a shitty place, you know? I still have not had that moment of ever being like the world in general is a good place. You know, talking to a lot of people. And you could just say it is sad that you think that, you know, talking to people from different countries saying like, oh God, I'm trying to move to Japan because I don't feel safe in my country because of all these refugees and all this kind of thing. And you could talk to some Japanese people like, oh God, you know, we love Americans, but oh, maybe a black American might be kind of scary for me, right? You know, there are stereotypes. And we talked about on this channel, you know, Japan. Are Japanese people really nice? I would say generally they're not malicious, but are they truly kind? Are they truly nice? You know, I haven't really seen that, right? And it's sad, you know, and again, it makes me doubt myself, you know, the things that I've done because, like, man, I try to make the world a better place. I've talked about the mistakes I've done, and I just said a mistake because it does feel like a mistake. Helping all those homeless people when I should have been enjoying life, you know, helping people just in general, my personality, you know, always trying to see the good in things. And it's like, man, I try to see the good in everything. And I just am constantly reminded that you know, the only reason people don't kill each other in this world is because they're afraid they're going to get killed by somebody, right? You know, but anyway, I'm blabbering, I guess. But, you know, I guess the grass is greener on the other side. People always think that this place is better, this place is better. And it's always like, man, the world just sucks in general. The world just sucks in general, dude. I don't know. Did this video make any sense? I don't know. I'm rambling. Oh, I gotta do a thumbnail, right? Come on. You know, I'm kind of in need of a haircut. Hair's get. I don't know. Is that a good thumbnail? How do I look cool? Anyway. Remember, if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, stream of consciousness. You know, I gotta do another. I gotta talk about Japan in general, you know, so. Remember, if you like the videos, like, subscribe, comment, share, support the channel if you want. I appreciate it. Thanks. Super chat, PayPal, Patreon, whatever. Oh, the word I was looking at. The most holier than thou people are often the most judgmental, right? And, you know, you meet people from all over the world, even if they're not necessarily religious, or maybe they have some kind of religion, a form of religion, right? You know, people always trying to, I don't know. I'm not sure. Anyway, whatever.